Is everything you heard about learning styles completely wrong? Let's dive into what science reveals and, more importantly, what it misses about helping your child learn better right now. I'm Janice Fitzmuller, educational neuroscientist and college admissions advisor. Initially, I focused on the developing brain and what impacts a child's cognitive ability, temperament, and behavior. Then I realized that children need something schools don't teach. Now, I guide parents on empowering their child and nurturing them to their full potential. You've probably heard this before. I'm a visual learner. My child is totally kinesthetic. But is there any truth to the idea that we all have one single learning style, or is that an educational myth? By the end of this video, you will know why the scientific approach has a major pitfall, what's really happening in your child's brain when they learn, and most importantly, how you can help your child learn better starting today. Here's the roadmap. First, we're going to look at where did learning styles come from, what the research actually says, what the science overlook, and what you should do right now to help your child. The learning styles idea exploded in the 70s and 80s. The big four: visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic. But the pitch was to teach kids to their preferred style and they'll learn better. But does this really hold up? Have you ever taken a what's your learning style quiz or had your child do one at school? Did it really change how they learned or just give them a label? Drop a comment if you or your child have been labeled with a particular learning style, and let me know if it helped, because I'd love to hear your experience. Here's what most science actually shows. Large studies and reviews, like one big one in 2008, found no strong evidence that matching teaching to a student's supposed style improves learning. But here's what science doesn't acknowledge. The way researchers test learning styles is based on a flawed assumption that each person uses only one style, and that's the real pitfall. So there really is a distinction between learning style and learning preference. I'll get to that in a moment. The truth is, when we learn, we engage multiple areas of our brain. No one just uses the visual or auditory. Nobody's using the part of the brain in the back that processes visual. Nobody only uses their ears. Even in the classroom, a child who is listening is also probably looking at the teacher, so they're using their visual as well as their hearing. That doesn't mean that the child can't process the information instantaneously just by listening. Some people can catch on just by listening. Other people need to write while they're listening. Other people need to draw while they're listening. So learning preferences is not the same as learning style. That's the distinction. I haven't come across yet a scientific study that looked at preferences or multimodal approach to science. That is a major pitfall. My point is, we all have ways that we like to process information. Maybe you and your child love diagrams or prefers listening, as I said, or remembers by writing. There's nothing wrong with that. But these preferences are not hardwired categories, is the point. Learning preferences have a multimodal view. You might favor one way, but your brain is always working across different regions, combining information from everywhere. So instead of boxing yourself or your child into one style, recognize that their favorite way to start, but encourage mixing it up. For example, in one episode, I talked about a visual learner, real name. I believe her name was, I don't remember her name now. Anyway, she was a child who looked like she wasn't paying attention in class because she liked to doodle. But I described her as a visual learner. Now, you'll hear me use learning preference interchangeably with visual learner or whatever kind of learner. My point is that it's a preference. So I'm not labeling any child as a visual learner or just a kinesthetic learner solely because I understand that other regions of the brain are involved in the learning process. Regardless of a child's preference, It's still the amygdala and the hippocampus, as well as the prefrontal cortex, that are involved in that child's learning, regardless of how they do it. So that's an example of the brain working across different regions. So the girl that's a visual learner, getting back to her, the point was to have her listen and use diagrams or whatever kind of visual aids that she needed. And because it was a short video, I didn't expand it to say that, let's say the child is preparing for a test. Let her go through the visual process that she needs to go through to synthesize the information, and then help her with practice tests, because in the classroom, she's going to know how to read. She's going to need to read and write to be able to pass that test. And that goes for all the children from all the reader writer schools are made for them. And that's something that I'll get into in a different episode. But my point is, there are ways to teach children who are not the reader writer traditional student style, where you can help prepare them to perform better in class, and not expect them to and draw pictures as they answer, or jump around as they perform as they answer, because that's just inappropriate. Children have to learn how to navigate in the real world, and the purpose of this particular channel is to help you guide your child to doing that, regardless of their learning style or learning preference or whatever challenges that they may be experiencing. So let's move on. Another child labeled visual learner, and her parents and teachers got together and loaded her up with diagrams, but she still struggled. But when they added activities where she talked through concepts, auditory, and wrote her own notes, reading, writing, based on what she understood, things finally clicked. She wasn't just visual, she just needed a mix, and that's true for all children. So that's what I was leading at in the earlier example of translating the learning preference into something that will help the children be successful on a test or in the classroom in any activity. This is an example. The occipital lobe has a lot to do with the visual processes of the brain. That's when that lobe lights up. When it comes to listening, it's the temporal lobe, the auditory cortex. When it comes to reading and writing, it's the language centers in the brain. And when it comes to kinesthetic, that's the motor cortex. This is a child that needs, and the cerebellum, this child needs to move around. But the magic happens when you combine them. Your brain builds more connections that way. Well, the brain is going to build more connections because the brain is automatically using the main processes in order for learning to take place, but makes learning deeper and longer lasting when the child is not only focusing on the way that they prefer to learn, but also using that as a basis to translate it into performance in the classroom, as I mentioned before. Having them talk about it, write about it, and then practice whatever the lesson is in school. Here's some tips. Here's a big mistake. Having your child stick on one style because some test says so. No, that's not the way to do it. Encourage them to use their preference as a starting point, then blend the other methods: draw, read aloud, write and build, and act things out. In fact, I facilitate a live monthly training on Zoom, and then throughout the week, we can interact in the community. I'll pin a link to the comments so that you can sign up if you're interested. Here's the recap. The one learning style idea is a myth. Real learning uses the whole brain. Scientists sometimes miss the bigger picture by focusing on only one style. Your child has learning preferences, but not limits. And mixing methods is the key to deeper, more lasting learning. So if you want to help your child right now, don't put them in a box. Notice what they enjoy and encourage them to try new approaches. Their brain will thank you, and so will their grades. If you find this video helpful, like and share it with someone else who can appreciate the message. Take care.